Welcome, and thank you for joining Saints Peter and Paul's Let's Live Lent series. Each week during Lent, you are invited to view a brief video designed to provide you with reflection and ideas as you embark on your own Lenten journey. Lent is a time to prepare and purify us in body, mind, and spirit for the mystery of Christ's passion by drawing us closer to this mystery. As with any journey, there is some preparation necessary. Jesus himself prepared. The preparation we'd like you to do before we begin is to ask yourself, what is the grace you desire to deepen within yourself over these next 40 days? As we walk with Jesus, our gospel narrative calls us to the practices which ground us throughout Lent: humility in almsgiving, intentionality in our prayer, and quiet fasting. These cornerstones provide us with the stability needed for the road ahead. Today we are considering the call to fasting. And yet, I don't know about you, Katie, but it sure seems like we've been fasting a lot.
Yes, I agree. Beginning Lent with a call to fasting, weeping, and mourning seems exhausting. We've been fasting from so much this year. Fasting from hugs and high fives, from gatherings, from being side by side in the pews, and some of us have lost loved ones. And so our invitation to you is not necessarily to fast more this Lenten season, but rather to consider all of our fasting from this past year as a jumpstart to Lent, a launching off point for nurturing a deeper relationship with God. You're familiar with the traditional practices of fasting, such as refraining from eating meat on Ash Wednesday and Fridays during Lent, or some of the popular practices such as fasting from chocolate, television, and social media. But why do we fast? Fasting offers us an opportunity. Those pangs of hunger or longing remind us of our hunger and longing for God. It's like tying a string around your finger to remind you of something. And when we feel our fasting, it helps remind us of a commitment we make to align our lives with Christ. Scripture reminds us that we do not live by bread alone. And so this Lenten season, we would invite you to consider what is and what is not sustaining or life-giving for you. What is a roadblock to your relationship with Christ? So perhaps this year we consider a different take on fasting. What might this look like, Jeff?
This year, it might not necessarily be fasting from something, but maybe it's making your fast a change or a call to action. You might consider ideas such as being more open-minded and less judgmental, less negative about the world around us. We all need a lot of grace right now, so maybe we need to reserve our judgment. Considering our life during this pandemic, maybe try taking a different perspective on the fasting that you've already been doing. Taking a note of the graces, as well as the things that we don't need, like clothes, maybe those tools I was going to buy. In recent times, it feels like everyone is screaming at each other to be heard, but perhaps we should simply listen. Maybe we should be fasting from worrying or other excessive behaviors that keep us from being closer to God. It's difficult to fast from technology when it's become such a necessity. But are there ways that we can still unplug? Maybe take a look at the content that we're consuming. Is what you take in on social media life-giving? Perhaps switch it up and focus on content that strengthens your faith, such as those on formed.org. We all have access to this service now through the parish website. These are a handful of suggestions to get you thinking. As you consider your call to fasting, take a moment, write your commitment on a piece of paper, and save it. At the end of Lent, read it and ask yourself, were any roadblocks to Christ removed as a result of my fasting? If so, you might want to continue.
Wait, what's that? Continue our fasting? You heard correctly. We began by thinking we may not necessarily need to fast more. But continuing to fast with a new perspective may be just what we need.